Ooh, coffee, yay! Most of you guys watching this are probably pretty big fans of coffee. It's actually one of the biggest exports and consumed drinks in the entire world. So before I get into some of the benefits that you might not know about it, I was going to give you guys a little bit of history about coffee. So right now you can order beans online or in a store, coffee beans that is, from Sumatra, Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, Guatemala, America, all over the place, all over the world, really, except obviously the colder regions. But this wasn't always the case. So coffee actually originates in Ethiopia. Some people say that it evolved in the same place, kind of in conjunction with the evolution of humans. Obviously, that's not completely backed up by the fossil record, but it definitely does have quite a few interesting effects on the body. So it was first discovered actually by goat farmers who noticed that their goats were nibbling on the berries of the coffee plant, and they noticed that the goats would get really happy and energized after, and shortly after they learned that they could actually make it into a tea, which we now consume as coffee. So this was only, like I said, in the Ethiopian region of Africa, but it was actually European explorers who liked it so much that they brought it all over the world with them and eventually started planting it in new soils, like in South America. And the cool thing about that is the different strains of coffee, as they adapted to the different environments and different soil conditions, produced very different flavors and subtly different effects. So that explains the really broad variety of coffees that we have today. So the actual benefits that you guys might not know, the first of which is it increases brain-derived nootropic factor, which is essentially steroids for your brain. So when you take an anabolic steroid for your muscles, obviously your muscles grow to a larger size and strength than they normally would. So think of BDNF as that exact same thing for your nervous system. It's going to make you sharper, it's going to make your reaction time better, and it's going to give you overall better cognitive performance over time. Because of this, it also significantly lowers your risk of Alzheimer's later in life. They've done some studies on this, and it's obviously long-term everyday consumption in moderation, of course. The next is that coffee is loaded with antioxidants. So what antioxidants are is they protect you from oxidation from what are called free radicals, which are basically little evil forms of oxygen that seek to mess with the voltage of your cells. So antioxidants neutralize these so that your cells can function normally and maintain optimal happy voltage. Next is muscle growth. So consuming coffee regularly actually suppresses what's called an mTOR pathway. When the mTOR pathway is suppressed, it actually bounces back and gives you a higher effect than it would if it was functioning normally and consistently. And one of the many things the mTOR pathway does is increase the growth of skeletal muscle. So drinking coffee can actually, to a subtle degree, give you increased muscle strength and muscle mass gains. So that's pretty cool. Next is ketones. So I mentioned this in my ketosis video, but drinking coffee can actually up to double the amount of ketones that your body is producing. So if you're in a state of mild ketosis and you have a cup of dark coffee in the morning with, of course, in the presence of no carbohydrates whatsoever, your ketone production will actually be increased significantly, and like I said, in some studies up to twice as much. So this can be really, really helpful for you guys if you're trying to lose some weight and increase your overall health and performance through the ketogenic diet. Next is that it's a delicious carrier for fats. So I'm a really big fan of healthy fats, as you guys know, and every day, just about, I'll start my day off with a cup of coffee blended in with various healthy fats. So I usually use grass-fed butter, a bunch of it, a couple tablespoons of MCT oil. Make sure you start slow with that because it can upset your stomach if you're new to it. I also put in some cocoa butter sometimes, and sometimes I'll mess with other oils or extracts and stuff for flavor or various effects. I put in ashwagandha, I put in Ceylon cinnamon, vanilla extract. I usually sweeten it with stevia or erythritol or maybe monk fruit, but definitely nothing sugar-based, because the cool thing is that you won't have any insulin released if you're just drinking fats and coffee. So if you're kind of into fasting and you're trying to keep your blood sugar levels low as much as possible, you don't want to start your day with any carbohydrates. So the cool thing about this is you feel full for a long time because the fats give you the fuel that you need for the day. You have a delicious, nice, warm, sweet beverage if you sweeten it, of course. and you get all these benefits. So that's a cool thing. But if you're going to drink coffee, the one thing I want to tell you guys is that quality matters. With almost every food or drink or supplement that exists, it's all about sourcing and quality. So the thing that's notorious especially in this country with coffees, is mycotoxins, which are poisons released from mold spores. Mold is a type of fungus that grows in wet conditions, and during the processing of coffee beans, it's a really good environment for mold to attach and reproduce and produce little chemical toxins called mycotoxins that are really, really harmful to the nervous system. They can wreck your mitochondrial health. They can sap your energy. If you guys have ever been to a breakfast place or out, maybe even to a Dunkin' Donuts, when you get a coffee, especially dark, you drink it and you get a little bit wiry and jittery. That's kind of like what coffee is known for, is making you like, oh yeah, I'm going to tweak out. I'm drinking too much coffee, you know? It shouldn't actually do that. And if it does do that, usually a couple hours later, you find yourself just crashing super hard. This is really common in business workplaces, as people come in and they start drinking coffee and then they start to crash. So they have another cup and they're all wired again and they crash another cup. That's not actually how it's supposed to be. And a lot of that is not actually your nervous system's activation from the coffee itself, but it's actually your body's fight or flight response. You're actually releasing stress hormones because your body's been infected with toxins. So if you're drinking bad quality coffee every day, you're not doing yourself any favors. And the problem with the United States is that we don't actually have any standards or regulations for mycotoxins. So that what happens is these coffee farmers will, collect their beans, roast them, the whole process, and ship them to, let's say, Europe. Before they can even leave the docks and bring the merchandise into the country, they test it for mold. The most common one is called aflatoxin, and there's also another one called ochratoxin. And if the levels are too high, they'll reject it and they'll say, no, we won't accept this. We're not going to give this to our people because, people use this to get through their days and, to get all the benefits out of it. And so the people on the ship say, oh, well, dang, we have all this coffee. We can't just bring it back or throw it in the water. This isn't the Boston Tea Party. So they ship it to places that have no regulations, like the United States. And that's how you get those big cans of bitter, tweaky coffee that, especially restaurants and stuff, are buying wholesale because it's cheaper and they don't care how you feel. They just want to give you a drink and tweak you out so you buy your breakfast and leave. So unfortunately, a lot of big name companies are selling moldy beans, and you can tell the difference. I can tell the difference for sure between a nice, clean, tested, mycotoxin-free, organic, happy coffee and just some, Joe's dark blend that came from who knows where and was roasted in who knows whose basement. There's a clear difference. So if you guys are going to get coffees, definitely do a little bit of research. It's kind of hard to find companies that are certified mycotoxin free. You kind of have to experiment a little bit, but just really pay attention to how you feel, and not just at first, but a couple hours later. If you start to pay attention, you'll notice that you can take a first sip and you'll know right away. So like I said, it takes a little bit to develop that sensitivity, but you'll definitely notice it. So companies that I use, and of course I have no affiliation with these companies, but I'd really encourage you guys to check them out. Bulletproof, they have 3 different roasts. If you like lighter or darker coffees, and they're all completely clean. That's kind of their big thing, is making sure that there's no mold or mycotoxins in there. Another one is called Health Boost or Life Boost. You can find it on Amazon. Their stuff's pretty good. But if you're going to buy something at the store, you don't have money or time to research and make sure there's no mycotoxins in there, just at least make sure you're getting some type of fair trade organic coffee that doesn't come from some weird moldy slave shop in underground China or something like that. Make sure you're getting something clean, and usually you can tell by the taste it's a little smoother. It's kind of more like a fine wine or a nice crisp tea or something. It shouldn't be super bitter and weird and make you all jittery. So in terms of how much you should have, that really depends on the person. Moderation is really key with this. Obviously, you don't want too much caffeine because it's going to put a lot of stress on your adrenals. So what a lot of people don't know about stimulants, especially caffeine, is that it's not necessarily them giving you energy, but they are an instruction that tell your adrenal glands to release various chemicals that give you energy, which is nice and not necessarily bad, but in too high of amounts is really going to stress your adrenals out, especially if you're doing this every day, especially if you haven't slept well, you're dealing with chronic stress. This can lead to various issues. So I would say 1 or 2 cups a day is probably ideal. I like to take breaks from time to time just to make sure that my body isn't too tolerant on it, and it's just kind of nice to cycle everything in general, just so you don't find yourself using something as a crutch or that you can't live without it, because then you're kind of missing out on the gifts of what that food or supplement or whatever it may be really has to offer. Different methods to make your coffee if you're making it yourself, which I definitely recommend you do. No matter what method you choose, make sure you're using a clean water source. Don't use tap water. Yeah, the coffee's probably going to cover up the taste, but there's so much nonsense from chlorine and fluoride and heavy metals in there. You want to make sure you get some good filtered water. Reverse osmosis or spring water, if you can get it, is ideal. But if you're trying to get the maximum benefits out of the coffee, I would recommend using a either French press or pour over method with a screen filter. So this is what I use. This is my French press. So you just put the coffee in the bottom, pour the water over the top, let it steep with the press up for about 4 minutes, and then just slowly press it down, and then you can pour it out. The reason I recommended either a French press or something with a screen filter is because the paper filters actually filter out some of the beneficial oils of the coffee, which will give you a little bit smoother of a taste if you're kind of trying to get away from the bitterness that some coffees have. But if you're trying to get the maximum benefits from it, you want to use a metal mesh filter because it doesn't keep in as many of the oils that actually give you that BDNF increase and all the antioxidants and kind of a richer flavor anyway. So that's about it for coffee. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Subscribe if you'd like, tell a friend, give me a comment or anything you guys think would be helpful to the other people seeing this, or to me or to you. So I'll talk to you guys soon.